Scott Reynolds had never been much of a deep sleeper. At 29, his body had settled into an annoying habit of waking up at the slightest noise, but today was different. Today, he had fallen asleep on the couch while watching TV, the sound of afternoon talk shows droning in the background. His half-eaten bowl of popcorn sat beside him, the blue glow of the screen flickering across his face. He wasn't sure how long he had been out when a warm breeze sent a strange sensation across his skin. His eyelids fluttered open, and his senses registered something immediately wrong. Instead of the soft cushions of his couch, he was standing on the walkway leading up to his house. His bare feet pressed against the sun-warmed concrete. His breath hitched as he took in his surroundings. His neatly trimmed lawn, the suburban street quiet in the afternoon lull, the hum of distant lawnmowers blending with the occasional chirp of birds. The neighborhood was peaceful, unaware of the man standing outside in nothing but a pair of navy blue boxers and a wrinkled white t-shirt. His heart pounded. How the hell did I get out here? Panic gripped him as he spun around and saw his house looming in front of him, its windows reflecting the bright sky, its front door closed, locked. He ran up the steps, pressing his hand against the knob. Of course, it didn't budge. Scott swallowed hard, his mind racing. He lived alone, no roommates, no girlfriend with a spare key, no explanation. Instinct kicked in. He jogged to the side of the porch, bent down, and fumbled around in the flower pot sitting against the wall. His fingers brushed against the small, cool metal of the spare key. He grabbed it, his hands trembling slightly as he jammed it into the lock. With a quick twist, the door kicked open. He stepped inside, shutting the door behind him and pressing his back against it as he tried to steady his breathing. The house was just as he had left it, the TV still on, the faint hum of daytime commercials playing, the popcorn bowl exactly where it had been. Except now, his body felt wired, his skin prickling with unease. He glanced at the time on the microwave, 3:17 p.m. Scott took a shaky breath. He had never sleepwalked in his life. So, how did he end up outside? And more importantly, why did it feel like someone had been watching him? Days passed and nothing unusual happened. Scott remained on edge for a while, half expecting another strange episode, but as time went on, his nerves settled. Maybe it had been some bizarre case of stress-induced sleepwalking. Maybe it was just a fluke. Then it happened again. It was a warm Saturday afternoon, and Scott had been reading in his easy chair, his fingers lightly gripping a paperback novel. The sunlight streamed through the blinds, casting lines of gold across the living room. The book was good, really good, but at some point, the words blurred together, his eyelids grew heavy, and sleep took him. The next thing he knew, he was standing. His eyes snapped open, and the disorienting rush of confusion hit him like a wave. He wasn't in his chair anymore. He wasn't even inside his house. He was outside on the sidewalk. And not just outside, across the street. Scott's pulse thundered in his ears as he took in his surroundings. He was standing at the corner, just across from his house, his bare chest exposed to the warm afternoon air. Instead of the jeans and t-shirt he had been wearing, he now had on a pair of bright orange athletic shorts and his running sneakers. No shirt, no socks. His mouth went dry. What the hell is happening? A car drove past, the driver not even sparing him a glance. To any passerby, he must have looked like a guy who had just come back from a jog, but Scott hadn't gone jogging. A prickle of unease ran up his spine. Did someone dress me? The idea made his stomach twist. He looked down at himself again, searching for signs that this wasn't real, that this was some kind of dream, but it wasn't. He could feel the pavement under his feet, the sun on his skin, the book still fresh in his memory. His first instinct was to get back home, fast. He started walking briskly across the street, his eyes darting around as if expecting someone to jump out and tell him this was all some elaborate prank, but the street was quiet. The houses were still. He reached his porch, his breath shallow. This time, when he reached for the spare key in the flower pot, he hesitated. His front door was slightly ajar. I locked it before sitting down, didn't I? His heartbeat pounded in his ears. He nudged the door open and stepped inside. The living room looked exactly as he had left it. His book was resting on the arm of his easy chair, open to the page where he had dozed off. His sneakers, the same ones on his feet right now, were supposed to be by the door, but that spot was empty. Scott swallowed hard. This wasn't just sleepwalking. This was something else, something worse. He wasn't just waking up in strange places. Something or someone was making sure he did. Days passed again, and nothing unusual happened. At first, Scott was paranoid. He forced himself to stay awake during the day, keeping himself busy, drinking coffee, standing when he felt the slightest drowsiness creep in. But eventually, exhaustion got the better of him, and he dozed off. Nothing happened. He woke up right where he had fallen asleep. His heart had pounded in his chest as he looked around, waiting for something to feel off, but everything was fine, normal. Little by little, he let down his guard. He returned to his routine, watching TV in the evenings, reading in his chair, even taking the occasional nap. And for weeks, he remained exactly where he had fallen asleep, until the third time. Scott had been reclining on his couch, half watching the evening news. He had been dressed casually, a blue polo shirt and slacks, winding down from an uneventful day. The rhythmic voice of the newscaster, combined with the warm glow of the setting sun, lulled him into a comfortable haze. His eyelids grew heavy. He let himself relax. And then, just like before, he wasn't home anymore. Scott's body jerked awake, his breath hitching. He was outside, not just outside, several blocks away from his house. The street was unfamiliar at first, lined with houses he didn't recognize, the soft hum of distant traffic filling the air. The afternoon light had dimmed into the quiet calm of early evening. He turned, scanning his surroundings, and finally spotted a familiar landmark, a small convenience store he had been to a handful of times. His house was at least a 10-minute walk away. His skin crawled. He was dressed exactly as he had been, blue polo shirt, slacks, sneakers. No inexplicable wardrobe change like before, but the panic set in anyway. Had someone seen him like this, just appearing on the sidewalk out of nowhere? Swallowing the growing sense of dread, Scott forced himself to move. He hurried back home, his pulse hammering in his ears, his mind racing through questions he had no answers to. By the time he reached his house, his hands were shaking. His front door was closed. A cold spike of relief shot through him. At least it wasn't wide open like last time. But when he reached for the handle, it turned easily, unlocked. Scott pushed the door open and stepped inside. Everything looked the same. The TV still murmured in the background. His book remained on the coffee table where he had left it. The air inside still held the faint scent of coffee from earlier. It was almost enough to convince him that nothing had happened. Almost. His skin felt clammy. His heartbeat was erratic. He needed to calm down. Maybe a shower would help. Scott pulled off his polo shirt and tossed it onto the bed. Then, as he unbuckled his slacks and let them fall, his body froze. His reflection in the mirror caught his eye. He wasn't wearing his usual boxer briefs. Instead, stretched snugly across his chest was a white sports bra. His lower half was covered by a pair of floral high-cut panties. His breath left him in a sharp, disbelieving gasp. These weren't his. He didn't own anything like this. His hands trembled as he touched the fabric, as if expecting it to vanish like some texture, the undeniable presence of clothing that he had never chosen to wear. A sick feeling coiled in his stomach. Someone had put these on him. Scott stumbled back against the wall, his reflection staring at him with wide, terrified eyes. This wasn't just sleepwalking. This was something else. And whoever or whatever was doing this to him, they were getting bolder. Scott didn't waste any time. After the last incident, waking up in someone else's clothes, he needed answers. If he was sleepwalking, there had to be proof. He spent an entire afternoon setting up surveillance cameras in his house, small, discreet devices, one in the living room near his easy chair, another in his bedroom, a third watching the front door. He positioned them carefully, making sure they covered as much space as possible without being obvious. Then he waited. Over the next few days, he tested himself. He took short naps in the afternoon, forcing himself to drift off in clear view of a camera. Each time, he woke up exactly where he had fallen asleep, nothing unusual happening. He even went so far as to check the footage, hours of himself motionless, breathing steadily, never moving. Maybe it had been a fluke. Maybe his mind had played tricks on him. Maybe, just maybe, he was finally done with this nightmare. Until it happened again. Scott woke up with a sharp inhale, his body tensing before his mind even had time to register his surroundings. He wasn't home. He was standing outside, near a strip mall, farther from his house than ever before. The bright fluorescent lights of the storefronts flickered above him. A handful of people milled about the parking lot, some entering stores, others lingering by their cars. A cool evening breeze brushed against his skin. The familiar scent of fried food and exhaust in the air. His heart pounded. He checked his clothes, his jeans, sneakers, gray hoodie, exactly what he had been wearing before he dozed off. Then, more discreetly, he checked underneath. His usual boxer briefs and undershirt. Nothing different. A strange, cautious relief settled over him. Maybe, just maybe, this time nothing had changed. But as he took a step forward, making his way home, something felt off. People were staring. Not everyone. Not even the majority, but a few. A woman near a frozen yogurt shop glanced at him, her brow furrowing before she looked away. A man sitting in his parked car did a slight double-take before returning to his phone. Two teenage girls whispering to each other giggled when they saw him. Scott's pulse quickened. What were they looking at? He kept his head down and hurried home. By the time he reached his front door, his nerves were shot. His hands shook as he pulled out his spare key, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. Something was wrong. He darted straight to the bathroom, flicked on the light, and froze. His face. His entire face was covered in makeup. Lipstick, blush, mascara, eyeshadow. Not just a little. A full face of makeup. Scott stumbled backward, his reflection a stranger staring back at him. The makeup wasn't sloppy either. It was expertly applied. The mascara made his lashes dark and thick. His lips were painted glossy red. His cheekbones were contoured with products he didn't even know the names of. His stomach churned. He grabbed a towel, ran the sink, and scrubbed his face raw. He didn't stop until every trace of it was gone. Then, moving on instinct, he rushed to his laptop and pulled up the surveillance footage. He fast-forwarded through the last few hours, checking the living room, the bedroom, the front door. Everything was normal, because Scott had dozed off in the one place he hadn't put a camera. He had been sitting in the kitchen, absent-mindedly flipping through a magazine when exhaustion took over. There was no footage of him disappearing. Scott clenched his jaw. Something was taking him, and whatever it was getting more creative. Scott tore apart his house. Every drawer, every cabinet, every forgotten storage box in his closet. He scoured every inch of his home, looking for any trace of makeup. Nothing. No lipstick, no foundation, no mascara, not even a stray eyeliner pencil. If he hadn't owned it, then where had it come from? A shiver ran down his spine. Next, he turned to his security footage. He checked the front door, never opened. The back door, untouched. He fast-forwarded, slowed it down, watched every second. There was no sign of him leaving. No sign of anyone entering. His mind raced. If it wasn't the doors, was it the windows? He checked them all. Locked. No tampering. No signs of forced entry. And yet it happened again. Scott woke with a jolt. The rush of cold wind against his skin made him realize immediately he wasn't home. He stood on the pedestrian walkway of the Brooklyn Bridge. The vast expanse of the East River stretched out below. The lights of the city flickering in the distance. The wooden planks beneath his feet felt solid, real, but his pulse pounded with disorientation. A handful of pedestrians walked by, some glancing at him, others too caught up in their own world to notice. Bicyclists zipped past on the adjacent lane, the hum of tires on wood mixing with the distant sounds of the city. Scott's breath caught in his throat. 5 miles from home. Then his mind snapped to something else. What was he wearing? The soft fabric against his skin made his stomach drop. A dress. A light aqua dress with an oval neckline, a fitted bodice, and 3/4 sleeves. His feet, white ankle boots with a small heel. His hair, he reached up and felt it, tied into pigtails. A sinking feeling spread in his gut. He didn't need a mirror to know. He could feel the bra strapped around his chest, the fabric of panties beneath the dress. Scott swallowed hard. He didn't have his phone. No wallet. No way to check his reflection. No way to fix this. A couple walked past, their conversation pausing for just a second as they glanced at him. A man jogging by did a quick double take before continuing on. Scott clenched his fists. No choice. He put his head down and started walking. 5 miles. An hour and a half in public dress like this. His face burned as he moved down the bridge, doing his best to look normal. Every time he passed a reflective surface, a store window, a car, he was too afraid to look. By the time he reached his apartment, his legs were sore. His nerves shot. His hands trembled as he unlocked his front door. He rushed inside, slamming the door behind him. Straight to the mirror. His stomach dropped. Makeup. Again. His lips painted a soft pink. His eyes lined and shadowed in subtle earthy tones. His cheeks dusted with blush. It was natural looking, deceptively simple, but it was there. Scott took a shaky breath, gripping the edge of the sink. He scrubbed his face raw, yanked off the dress, the bra, the panties, everything. He stood in front of the mirror, staring at himself. His own reflection. But for how much longer? He had to figure this out because whatever was happening to him, it was getting worse. Scott sat on his couch, his hands gripping his temples. His mind spun with questions, but no answers came. What was happening to him? He thought about calling someone. A friend. Anyone. Maybe Mike, his old college buddy, or Jenna, who had always been the understanding type. But the moment he imagined their reactions, he hesitated. Dude, you blacked out and woke up in a dress. Are you on something? Scott, maybe you need to see someone. No. They'd think he was crazy. Or worse, they'd think he was making it up. So, he kept it to himself. The next week passed without incident. No strange disappearances. No waking up in random places. He forced himself to stay awake when he could. Kept his coffee intake high. Even moved the couch into the most surveilled part of the house, so he'd be on camera at all times. Nothing happened. Until it did. Scott woke up mid-step. His foot hit the smooth wooden floor with a light tap. His arms positioned like he was in mid-dance. The smell of rosin and sweat filled his nose. He froze. The wall-to-wall mirrors reflected rows of ballet bars and a polished wooden floor. A few people lingered in the room, stretching, chatting, but no one seemed to notice him. Scott spun around and bolted out of the studio before his mind could catch up. Soho. He was in Soho 7 miles from home. And then he noticed what he was wearing. A black leotard, pink tights, a short pink ballet skirt, soft ballet slippers on his feet. His hair tied neatly into a bun. Scott's throat went dry. He didn't need a mirror to know if he had makeup on. By now, he just knew. A couple of women walked past him on the sidewalk, giving him a glance before continuing their conversation. A man near a coffee shop gave him an up-and-down look, like he was trying to figure out if he was supposed to be there. Just walk. Scott lowered his head and started moving. 1 mile. 2 miles. By mile 3, his legs ached. The ballet slippers had no support. Every step on the rough pavement sent shocks of pain up his calves. By mile 5, his shirt, no, his leotard, was clinging to his skin with sweat. By mile 7, his feet throbbed. His lungs burned. And every step felt like walking on broken glass. Finally, he reached his apartment. He staggered inside, slammed the door shut, and locked it. Straight to the bathroom. He ripped the slippers off first. Then the skirt. Then the leotard tights, and everything else. The mirror confirmed what he already knew. The makeup. The same natural, clean look. Almost like he had done it himself. Almost perfect. Scott gripped the edge of the sink. This wasn't just sleepwalking. This wasn't just stress. Something was happening to him. And whatever it was getting bolder. Scott sat on the edge of his bed, staring at his phone. The clothing didn't matter. The makeup didn't matter. What mattered was that he was waking up farther and farther away each time. What happens if I wake up in another state? What happens if I wake up in another country? He couldn't keep walking home every time. He needed a backup plan. Scott scrolled through his contacts, his finger hovering over Mike's name. He pressed call. Yo, Scott. What's up, man? Scott swallowed. Hey, listen, if I ever call you and need a ride, can you come pick me up? Mike laughed. What, you getting into bar fights now? No, nothing like that. Just if I ever call and need a ride, you got me, right? A pause. Then yeah, of course, dude. You okay? Scott forced a chuckle. Yeah, just covering my bases. Mike hesitated. All right, man. You sure you're good? I'm good, Scott lied. Thanks. The next time it happened, Scott was already moving when he woke up. The bright lights of Midtown Manhattan shimmered around him. His heels clicked against the pavement. He stopped in the middle of 42nd Street and 5th Avenue, heart pounding. This was worse. Much worse. A couple of pedestrians passed him with brief, admiring glances. A man in a suit gave him an appreciative nod. Scott looked down at himself. He was dressed for a Broadway premiere. A floor-length gown of luxurious silk hugged his form, shimmering under the streetlights. Intricate lace detailing and subtle sequins caught the glow with every movement. A feathered shawl draped over his shoulders. High heels. A matching clutch purse. He reached up. His hair was styled into a chic updo. His fingers brushed against dangling diamond earrings. Scott's breath came fast and shallow. He forced himself to stay calm. The purse, he opened it. Inside, a wallet, cash, a phone, a Metro card. Everything he needed. Someone had thought this through. But who? Scott pulled out the phone, but it wasn't his. It had no passcode. The wallpaper was just a blank screen. His pulse hammered. He had two choices. Call Mike and try to explain this insanity, or figure this out himself. His fingers hovered over Mike's name. No. He backed out and instead opened the Uber app. A black sedan pulled up minutes later. The driver, an older man with graying hair, gave him a friendly nod. Beautiful dress, the driver said as Scott slid into the back seat. Scott forced a smile. Thanks. The whole ride home, he stared at his reflection in the window. His flawless makeup. His perfectly styled hair. The familiar sinking dread. It's getting worse. When he got home, he stripped everything off immediately. The dress, the heels, the shawl. He wiped off the makeup, yanked out the earrings, and threw the purse onto the couch. Scott stared at himself in the mirror. He wasn't scared because of what was happening anymore. He was scared because he was starting to think whoever was doing this, whoever was dressing him, transporting him, and leaving him somewhere new, wasn't just playing games anymore. They were preparing him for something, and he had no idea what. The classroom of Miss Shanti is alive with anticipation. The soft hum of young voices mixing with the rustling of colorful worksheets scattered across tiny desks. Sunlight filters in through large windows, casting playful patterns on the walls decorated with bright student-created art. Each corner has been carefully adorned with vibrant alphabet posters, cheerful reminders of the day's activities, and an assortment of books that beckon from their shelves. Miss Shanti, with her signature warm smile and expressive eyes, sits in an inviting plush, oversized armchair that's an enticing shade of teal. Gathering the attention of her wide-eyed kindergartners, she holds the illustrated book, Where Could Scotty Go?, poised in her hands. The children, seated on their little rugs, lean forward, eagerly anticipating the next adventure Scotty will embark on. As she turns the page, the atmosphere buzzes with curiosity. The colorful illustration captivates the room. A woman elegantly dressed in a luxurious gown attending a Broadway play captures the kids' imaginations. With gilded swirls and sparkles in her dress, she almost seems to leap off the page. Then, as Miss Shanti flips to the next page, her voice rising with enthusiasm, the classroom bursts with imagination. The new illustration depicts a picturesque woman basking in the beauty of Central Park. Dressed in a lightweight, cream-colored sundress, her figure exudes effortless grace. The fitted bodice hugs her shape just right, while the full skirt billows slightly in a gentle breeze, animated by the soft swaying of the park's trees. The floral pattern dances subtly across the fabric, whispering of spring's blossoming charm. In the picture, the woman is feeding the pigeons, the children taking every detail. Her rich, burgundy-textured tights that add a splash of sophistication and warmth, while her low-heeled, earth-toned ankle boots with stacked heels ground her playful elegance. The class collectively admires her fitted, cream-colored hat, its golden leaf brooch glinting in the sunlight, adding a touch of whimsy. Miss Shanti continues, her voice weaving through the description like a gentle breeze. Or Scotty could go to a big park. The biggest one in New York City. The mention of a big park puts imaginations into overdrive. The children can almost feel the grass beneath their feet, hear the laughter of other kids playing, and envision the vastness of Central Park. They share excited glances, eyes wide with wonder, as Miss Shanti's words transport them to a world filled with possibility. Around the room, little hands rise eagerly, ready to share their thoughts on where Scotty might explore next. Each child's face is lit with the kind of joy that only comes from being fully immersed in a story. A collective journey of discovery sparked by Miss Shanti's gentle guidance and the vibrant illustrations unlocking their creativity. The scene is a perfect blend of innocence, imagination, and the magic of storytelling enveloping the kindergarten classroom. Scott's eyes fluttered open to the sound of fluttering wings and soft coos. He was standing. His hands moved automatically, tossing small scraps of bread into the air. A flock of pigeons hopped and fluttered at his feet, pecking eagerly at the pieces. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, like a wave crashing over him, awareness hit. The light breeze rustling the leaves. The chatter of tourists in the distance. The faint sound of a street performer's saxophone. Scott looked down. The cream-colored sundress swayed gently with the wind. It had a fitted bodice, a full skirt, and a delicate floral pattern that looked hand-stitched. His legs were covered in burgundy-textured tights, leading down to a pair of low-heeled, earth-toned ankle boots. A fitted hat sat snugly on his head, adorned with a golden leaf-shaped brooch. His fingers trembled as they brushed against the layered necklaces resting against his chest. The pendant was warm-toned, complementing the golden studs in his ears. Scott's stomach twisted. His face. He needed to see his face. He clutched his purse, fumbled through it, and pulled out a compact mirror. His breath hitched. The subtle, earthy-toned eyeshadow. The bold, crimson lip color, perfectly applied. Like an artist had sculpted him into someone else. Scott's hands clenched into fists, crushing the last of the bread in his palm. The pigeons scattered.